Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 FIFA World Cup video. And today we're going to be looking at the top 10 World Cup finals of all time. I actually had done the top 10 World Cup finals prior to the 2026 World Cup final, anticipating maybe a blowout or something that just doesn't look good. But the 2026 World Cup final did make the list. A lot of people would be probably shocked that it made the list, but it did. It made the top 10 list. Looking at my top 10, my previous top 10, I knew I would make some moves and all that, some big money moves. And by the way, this video is actually dedicated to another English icon by the name of Kevin Keegan. I will do a classic soccer Kevin Keegan video where I explained Kevin Keegan stuff, or over explain, I guess, Kevin Keegan's impact on English soccer, like in the Premier League and the First Division, like as a player and manager, and of course his bungling of the English team in qualifying for the 2002 World Cup. But thankfully, though, Sven Eriksson came in and saved England by beating Germany in Germany. So this list is dedicated to Kevin Keegan's memory. But anyway, let's look at the top 10 World Cup finals of all time. All right. Number 10 is Italy Germany 1982. Now, I know that Germany is technically West Germany at the time, but because, East Germany only made it one time, I can say Germany. So in 1982, Italy and Germany met in the finals. Italy actually made the finals awkwardly. I mean, they had Paolo Rossi in their lineup, and Paolo Rossi had just come off a 2-year suspension for betting on soccer. So Enzo Berzot, the manager, putting him in the Italian roster was actually controversial enough, but Rossi proved himself with a powerful hat trick against Brazil in a knockout game that knocked out Brazil, one of the best teams to never win the World Cup, other than the '74 Dutch. But yeah, Italy went to the semifinals. They beat Poland. That's right, because France and Germany had that great semifinal. Italy and Germany took each other in the finals. Marco Tardelli's big goal. Paolo Rossi scoring once. Italy beat West Germany 3-1 and won the World Cup. This one was in Spain, of course. And this was, of course, the World Cup that's Algeria and Germany basically, Austria and Germany basically playing shed football so to avoid Algeria making it through to the next stage. And that's how FIFA does simultaneous kickoffs, even in 2026. Okay, number 9 is 2014 Germany Argentina. Fans in Brazil didn't really want to watch this final because Germany crushed Brazil 7-1. Yes, that was the year Germany beat Brazil 7-1. The Simpsons actually predicted Germany beat Brazil, albeit in the final and albeit by a score of 1-0. So that didn't happen. But yeah, Germany took care of that. Argentina had to take care of the Dutch in penalties. And then the Dutch beat Brazil for third place. Anyway, so Germany took on Argentina. Argentina actually had a goal disallowed. And yes, Messi was on that Argentine squad in 2014. Unfortunately, late in the second period of extra time, Mario Götze came on and off the bench, scored a goal, and that was the main goal as Germany took care of Argentina, won the World Cup in Brazil. Of course, Brazilians actually were happy because they did not want Argentina winning the trophy on their turf. Brazil and Argentina, the big rivalry. Number 8 is Zizou's World Cup, 1998. Zizou and company. Sorry, the 98 World Cup. So, the 98 World Cup, France were hosting the title. They beat Paraguay on a golden goal. They beat Croatia. Unfortunately, though, Laurent Blanc got red carded, meaning that he could not compete in the final. But the Croatian player kind of simulated it. But Brazil were Brazil, trying to defend their title. And then, unfortunately, the night before the big game between France and Brazil, Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, that is, had an epileptic fit, supposedly, and was not on the Brazilian team roster to compete. However, 30 minutes before the kickoff, his name was on the sheet and in the starting lineup. Allegedly, Nike had put pressure on the Brazilian soccer team to put Ronaldo in the game for commercial purposes. But Ronaldo was basically a zombie. Zidane scored twice, and they won the game 3-0. Of course, this was the World Cup that we saw Zidane in the positive and all that. Uh, yeah. Number 7 is the current one, 2026 World Cup. I had to give it some negative points because of Argentina's poorest performance, not getting a single shot on Unai Simon, like the Spanish goalkeeper. Spain, up to this point, actually tied Cabo Verde, or Cape Verde, as some people call it, 0-0 in the first game, and then all of a sudden went off on a winning streak of note. Spain took care of the defending finalist France 2-0 in the semifinals. Argentina took care of my beloved England squad 2-1, but I don't blame Argentina. We had a 1-0 lead, and England decided to play defensive football. I thought Thomas Tuchel, our manager, had learned not to do what Gareth frickin' Southgate did in the 2 Euros. The 2 Euro finals we were in, 2020 and 2024. But yeah, it was supposed to be this big final. Razzmatazz of New York, New Jersey. Trump was there with General Infantile. I mean, you know, the FIFA guy, as I call him, General Infantile. But the fact of the matter is that it was 0-0 going into extra time, and then Ferrer Torres, Ferrer Torres, came in off the bench, scored the goal, 1-0 Spain. Spain actually had a second goal marked off for offside, but yeah, Argentina had like few chances at Unai Simon. No wonder he won the goalie of the tournament. But yeah, Spain won the game 1-0, and yet again another F Torres, wearing number 7, won the title. 2010 it was Fernando Torres, number 7, 2010. And Ferrer Torres became the first substitute in a World Cup final to score a goal since Gatza in 2014. Yeah, I had to give it bad points for Argentina's stuff and their behavior. I mean, a couple of their players and assistant coaches could be in deep, deep trouble for their post-match fracas. And of course, Trump trying to sneak in on the Spanish photo, but they just erased them. They just photoshopped them out. You can do that. Number 6 is the 2006 World Cup and all its ugliness. Good thing that I didn't rank this higher, but everyone knows about the 2006 World Cup, or should know it. It was in Deutschland, it was in Germany. Germany had a chance to get to the final, but freaking Italy with Grasso, Gol di Grasso, ruined it. Italy would take on France. Sisu with the Pineka, as in the kick, the kind of floating kick. It hit the crossbar, but it bounced over the line. France scored 1-0. And then Materazzi scored to tie the game at 1. It's ironic that Zidane and Materazzi both scored the goals for their team. They went into extra time. Materazzi tugged on Zidane's shirt. Zidane basically said, if you want this shirt, I'll give it to you after the match. And then Materazzi supposedly said, I want that horror of a sister you have. And Zizou basically headbutted him. I don't blame Zizou for getting mad, but a headbutt is terrible, and you don't get away with anything other than the red card with a headbutt. And of course, John Mutson at BBC says, you can't excuse that, surely. And practically he didn't. So Zizou was sent off his international finale with a red card, which was terrible because France and Italy went to penalties, and France needed Zizou, and they lost on penalties to Italy. Another penalty shootout that did not make the list was 94. Brazil and Italy. It was kind of boring. They both were kind of playing for the penalty shootout, kind of like Argentina in 2026. I mean, how else do you explain no shots on target? But yeah, 94, I just couldn't put it on the list because of how boring and, Baggio's missed and all that. If there was more drama, I probably would have given it a second thought. Number 5 is the Miracle at Bern, 1954, Germany, Hungary. And you'll be thinking, how is 1954 top 5? Well, it's the biggest and the only time in history that a team has come back from 2 goals down in the final to win. West Germany were a decent team, but Hungary were better. Hungary were the talk of the soccer world because of the whole thing with their, 40-match unbeaten 30-match unbeaten streak, and beating England both in England at Wembley and on home turf in Budapest. This was a couple years before the Soviet machine tore into Hungary and basically the water polo thing. Nevertheless, in 1954, Hungary were looking pretty damn good. And they were up 2-0 in the final against West Germany, but then Germany pulled off 3 straight goals to win the game, 3-2. Helmut Run is the hero. Hungary actually had 1 goal incorrectly called off for offside and all that, so they got bit. Unfortunately for Hungary, they just weren't the same powerhouses after 1954. And of course, the communist Russians kind of ruined it for them in 56 with the uprising. West Germany did pretty good and all that. But yeah, coming back from 2 goals down in a World Cup final, that's big. Germany actually did come back from 2 goals down in 1986. They were down 2-0 to Argentina, but they tied it at 2, but Argentina won the game 3-2, so, it didn't matter. Number 4 is England 1966. I know you would have accused me of bias for a FIFA World Cup final being England's 1966 one, but no, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to be that biased. So the 66 tournament was in England. England basically had 16 teams, and North Korea somehow in some way qualified through the Asian qualifiers. So North Korea basically was sent to the upper east part of England, to Middlesbrough, because England didn't want North Korea to spread their propaganda. The trouble was, it actually worked too well, as the Middlesbrough people adopted North Korea for themselves, because the North Korean players, because, they were far away from London, and as an afterthought. North Korea would, of course, beat Italy 1-0 in that famous game that sent the Italian players home to a barrage of rotten tomatoes. But so England and West Germany would meet in the final, and it was an epic one. England was up 2-1, but then Germany scored on a Wolfgang Wahlberg shot in the 90th minute to tie the game at 2. And then Jeff Hurst's second goal of the game to make it 3-2. Controversial, that ball did not bounce over the line, and this is an English fan talking about it. But yeah, that definitely did not cross the line. It may have been influenced by the linesman, who was Russian, but of course it was retcon to Azerbaijanian, who kind of did have a beef with the Germans because of Germany and Russia. Although Russia beat Germany in World War II, in a sense, because of its cold climate. It was 3-2, and then Jeff Hurst scored the third goal to make it 4-2, and of course the famous call by Kenneth Wolsterholm. There's some people on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now, and it was for Germany. England won 4-2. Germany would kind of get some semblance of revenge 4 years later in 1970, beating England in the quarterfinals 3-2. England didn't have their star goalie Gordon Banks, in that he suffered from Mexican tummy, so Peter Bonetti came in. And of course, controversially, Lampard's goal in 2010 was disallowed, which was stupid, and that was kind of revenge for Wembley. They think it's all over actually was the name of a satirical sports show, quiz show, a panel show, if you will, on the BBC with Nick Hancock as host, with Gary Lineker and David Gower as captains, and then the comedian. Well, each team would have a comedian. Lee Hurst and then Jonathan Ross on Gower's team, and Rory McGrath on Lineker's team, and they would have celebrity guests and all that, comedians and soccer players among others. All right. Number 3 is the Maracanã Zone, 1950, Brazil, Uruguay. So Uruguay hosted and won the 1930 World Cup. They didn't compete in 34 or 38 because European nations could not they had to go to Europe. And travel between South America and Europe was a whole lot different in the 1930s as it is in the 2020s. But Uruguay got a chance to play on home continent soil, as Brazil hosted the World Cup in 1950. You thought 2014 was the first time Brazil hosted the World Cup. Nope, it was 1950. So 1950 World Cup, Brazil were in with Uruguay, Spain, and I can't remember the fourth team. But yeah, they had the stupid thing, 4 group winners. They would all play a round robin to decide who won the championship. Brazil needed a tie against Uruguay on the final day at the Maracanã in front of 199,000 fans, supposedly. And England, what am I thinking? And Brazil were so engrossed, they had medals made of it. There was going to be big celebrations and all that. Jules Rimet himself would see to that. Brazil had a 1-0 lead, but then goals by Chigia and Schivano scored to make it 2-1, and those two did something that only two people, Frank Sinatra and the Pope, ever did: silence the Maracana Stadium. And the fallout was big in Brazil. I mean, not only were the players basically banished from actually soccer activities or even watching some soccer activities, like watching the Brazilian national team in some sources. They changed their colors from white and blue to yellow and blue, so the iconic yellow shirts came in play. Although a lot of people didn't really see the yellow shirts until 1970 when the World Cup was in color. And speaking of 1970, that's number two. And that the 1970 World Cup, Brazil, Italy. The world in color, because now with color TV, you could see the yellow shirts of Brazil, the blue shirts of Italy, the whites of Germany, the reds of England. It was a Technicolor World Cup, and Mexico hosted it for the first time. They hosted in '86, and of course this year, 2026. So anyway, 1970 was big. Pele was just coming near the end of his international career, not domestic because he went over to play for the New York Cosmos in the late '70s. But yeah, Brazil had like a team approach to it. No man was bigger than the team, not even Pele. Pele had some great goals and assists and all that, and of course his famous missed goal against England in the 1970 group stage. But there was one man, Jarzinho, who scored the second goal, I think it was, against Italy in that 4-1 win. That made him the first player ever to score in all three group games and then the knockout games. Of course, in 1970, it was just quarters, semis, and finals. So that's 6 games instead of the 8 we have nowadays. 3 group games in the round of 32, 16, 8, 4, 2. And allegedly, they're going to make it a 64 team tournament for 2030. Oh boy, the logistics are just not going to work. Something is going to fall flat. Well, the World Cup in 2030 is in Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. So you have 3 nations hosting it, just like 2026. But the worst part is there's two different continents. Although Morocco is across from Spain, so the travel isn't going to be that bad. But yeah, they're going to put some games in South America to celebrate the centennial because it was in Uruguay in 1930. I understand that. Okay. Nevertheless, yeah, 1970. But then the famous team goal in which every Brazilian basically touched the ball until Carlos Alberto thundered it in the net, clinching Brazil's 4-1 win and giving Pele his 3rd title as a player. And number 1, come on, you really think it's not number 1? It's 2022. It's Argentina, France, 4-3 in a penalty shootout. It was a finals for the ages because it was back and forth. Argentina had 2-goal lead, and Mbappe led them to tie the game, and then both teams scored in extra time. Emilio Martinez, the Argentine goalie, with a basically balls out save, flashing from the net, and then lying down, and then getting the ball with his foot to deflect a France potential winner. And of course, Mbappe versus Messi, it was basically the passing of the torch, but Messi torched Mbappe, yeah, despite Mbappe's hat trick. So Argentina won the title. They were looking to repeat in 2026, but they fell. It's kind of the weird thing is that in 98, France won the World Cup, and then they lost the final in 2022. Argentina won in 2022, lost the final to Spain in 2026. Will Spain go to the final in 2030 in their home country and fail and lose to somebody? We don't know about that. And what's even more impressive is that Spain becomes the first nation ever to win the World Cup and then get to host it the next year, the next time. It never has happened before. Every time a team has won a World Cup, they weren't in line to host it. So, of course, as I said, Spain won the World Cup in 2026, and then now 2030, they're co-hosting with Portugal and Morocco, so they're hosting the World Cup. So they would have qualified for the World Cup anyhow. But yeah, they're going to be the defending World Cup champs into a tournament they host. Not even Brazil ever did that. That's just freaky. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.